I went through a really tough time where, I would scroll through the comments and it would just be so triggering.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there was a time where I didn't really love myself. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I wasn't happy with my day-to-day.
10 years in the social media game, how has that shaped your opinion of the world?
Social media has been a wonderful tool for me, but social media has also been a very challenging tool that I've had to learn how to use wisely. I was neglecting myself, right? Because I was so busy. And so I stopped eating healthy. I stopped going to the gym. I was becoming swollen, like in my face from all the cortisol levels, like super inflamed. I was having flare-ups, like rashes and like breakouts on my face, which is normally not like something very common for me. I was gaining weight. And that was the biggest one, was I gained weight and a lot of the people noticed.
Okay.
And they were commenting on it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because I already don't feel great. Clearly, I'm not taking care of myself, clearly. And now you have random people pointing it out. I went through a really tough time where, I would scroll through the comments and it would just be so triggering.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there was a time where I didn't really love myself. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I wasn't happy with my day-to-day. It really did a lot to my mental health when I was already not doing the best.
Today's guest is Karla Marie. Karla is no stranger to social media. In fact, she has been around since the days of Vine. And I'm not aging her by saying that. I say that to tell you that she is an absolute expert in social media navigation. And today, Karla goes in depth with what she's learned from being an influencer for so long. She shares the vulnerable sides of her as far as what she realized social media could offer and also what it may have taken from her. Overall, she gives a incredibly deep dive into the inner workings of who she is, and offers a bit of advice for those that might be in the dating world, navigating it, and what they could be cognizant of as they continue to have these discussions to get to know people of interest. And so this is an incredible conversation. So grateful for you all to be here. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Karla Marie, welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I feel very honored to be the first person that has brought you on a podcast. Is that correct?
Yes, it's my very first.
Very first. I have a few questions centered around that. First off, how are you feeling overall?
I am very excited. Obviously, with excitement comes a little bit of nerves, especially because it's, such a different dynamic from what I'm used to as far as being in front of the camera. This is more of, an introduction of me as a person, more so as like a performer. So, and by performer, I don't mean like, I'm a performer, but when you're in front of the camera, you do step into a different role. And I feel like this right now is a completely different role. So I'm excited to, just get really real and show parts of me that perhaps a lot of my following doesn't know exist.
Yeah. And I want that for you as well. So often people see what they see on social media and they start to fill in the blanks beyond the posts. So, oh, this is a post and this is a post, and they start to think that they know the individual. But you and I both know that there's so many deeper layers outside of social media, which probably is still curated, even those that are still trying to be fully authentic. And I don't do a ton of editing, but am I putting out the best clips, and my best dances? And am I showing the 500 dance moves before that perfect video? No, I'm not. So that's why I love doing something like this, because it'll allow individuals to see a truer you, more vulnerable version of you, which I think is really empowering. So I'm excited to have you here. And on the cover, you are I was trying to think of a way of like titling you.
Okay.
I don't know. How do you feel about the word influencer? Like, is there a negative connotation attached to that for you, or do you like it? Do you see it as a positive?
I try not to label it good or bad.
Okay.
But I do think that it doesn't align with me entirely.
Okay.
I obviously would be considered an influencer in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of content that is, influencer friendly or guided. So am I an influencer? I mean, yeah, a part of me is, but I would like to be known as, just an individual that is trying to use a platform to share my story and inspire others to just live life more authentically and take better care of yourself, do more of what you love.
Yeah.
Break the mold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of, like, what are you, an influencer or a life coach or a mental health advocate? I'm a little bit of whatever I want to be that day.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. I fall in that same category. I think there's a little bit of a negative connotation attached to it. Maybe a little bit of vanity attached. I mean, there's individuals that I see that just use their platform for pats on the back and for people to validate them. And don't get me wrong, I've probably been, I know I've been in that place at one point.
Same.
But it's also, hey, we have this ability to impact a large group of people. How cool would it be to be able to impact the lives of many? And you absolutely have that at your disposal. You've been around on social media since the days of Vine, which some people may forget that was a thing, the younger generation mainly. But for us older individuals, it's that was, I mean, I remember those days. I actually wasn't a part of Vine. I was so anti-social media for the longest period.
Okay.
But that's where you really kind of took off. And now we're 10 years in and you have a massive following by all standards, over, I think, 780,000, I think at this point, which I say that, and you and I both know that it's like, hey, the amount of followers I have doesn't make me a better human being or any more special than anybody else, but it does give you the ability to reach that many more individuals. But nonetheless, you've built up a platform over 10 years. You've been in this social media environment. I would say you're a seasoned veteran in that regard versus someone like me that's been in for maybe like 2 years, but on and off. I'm not like fully committed to it.
Yeah.
I'm now diving in. My first question for you with that being said is 10 years in the social media game, how has that being a part of social media for this long shaped your opinion of the world as a whole?
Oh my gosh.
I know I'm opening up large here. I mean, I'm blowing the top off here. I want to say that in a very generic sense. I don't want to narrow it down.
Yeah.
I just want to see where you take that, because I have a lot of opinions on social media.
Where do we start?
Wherever you want to start.
Okay. Well, I didn't intentionally create content on Vine or make videos on Vine with the purpose of going viral or of becoming like an influencer or anything like that. I think it was just kind of a natural thing that happened. It was a funny video. I still remember to this day the very first video that went viral. I was having a really bad day and I was in college, and I can't hide my emotions. My face says it all. And I remember that day I had a couple of people come up to me, like whether it was friends or a professor, telling me to lighten up.
Okay.
And I get very irritated when people are a little bit insensitive as far as like, oh, cheer up, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Correct.
You don't know what kind of day I'm having for me to wear this mask, this face, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember just being super frustrated, and I don't know why I resorted to making a funny, sarcastic video about it. I remember like word for word, I said something along the lines of, it's so annoying when people clearly know that you're in a bad mood and their first instinct is to tell you to cheer up and lighten up.
Yeah.
And I was in my dorm and the lights were off. So I like flicked the lights on and I lit up.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded by saying, is that better? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's not really the way that I like to communicate. Like, I don't like to take out that aggressiveness in me and like curse and stuff. And especially like on social media, I try to be a good example. Not that cursing is a bad example, but I do like to be more soft and feminine and, warm, welcoming. But when I wasn't doing okay, it was very normal for me to be aggressive with my communication. And so I was frustrated and I created that video, and I guess it was very relatable because we all go through those moments
Mm-hmm.
where we're not feeling okay and someone's like, cheer up, you know, it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is not the appropriate way to comfort someone because you're diminishing their feelings.
Yeah.
And so that's how my little spiel started off on Vine. I started to just create other funny, sarcastic videos and they just did well. I then started to like guide those followers to my Instagram and, you know, things just started to unravel differently there.
Mm-hmm.
Social media has been a wonderful tool for me to have a lot of opportunities and, you know, it opened doors for me and meet a lot of great people. So I won't knock it, but social media has also been a very challenging tool that I've had to learn how to use wisely.
Okay. Challenging in what ways?
In the way of what you said earlier of, you know, sometimes you do just post the best picture, the best video, and it's just like to post.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of start to embody that influencer mentality of everything is content.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes you kind of forget the purpose behind it. You're just posting to post to stay relevant and, you know, to fit in and to be a part of it and not have all this following. So now they have expectancies and this, and that. So it does create like this pressure,
it does,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so for the beginning of my journey as someone on social media, I don't think I was being authentic because I didn't feel that people were following me to hear what I felt or hear what I had to say. It was more so they were following me for like the surface area of like, oh, she's funny, she does this, she looks like that, or whatever the case may be, or the reason for why I even gained that following in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily because I felt like I was being liked for my personality.
Yeah.
So I didn't really share a whole bunch about myself, especially because in those moments, I didn't love my reality. I can honestly say I didn't love my life. I didn't love myself. And so I was really trying to just fit in and trying to fake it of like, well, I have this following, so I might as well use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the, I guess, modeling industry, entertainment business for a while now. And so a lot of the times, it just fit in of I'm being booked to host this event. So, you know, I have a platform and you post the fun parts, the fun bits, like what looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked fun. Like from the outside looking in, my social media for the most part looks like I have a wonderful life, and I do. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and there's a lot that I, you know, have had to overcome to be where I am right now, even in front of you, and be comfortable speaking.
Yeah.
So the way that social media has changed the way that I see the world, I try to, like I said, not look at it as something negative because it can be a wonderful tool and a wonderful place to connect. But it also is a place where people hide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a place where people get really brave and are really cruel.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself in a place to be criticized because I'm on a public platform.
Yeah.
And I am willingly doing it and posting knowing that however many people follow me might see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to be open to the fact that someone's not going to like that. Someone's going to think negatively of that. Someone's going to judge this. Someone's going to point this out. And that is very tiring.
Yeah. Because
we're our own biggest critics. And now you're putting yourself in a place for strangers to now have something to say about you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have. I went through a really tough time where, you know, I would scroll through the comments and it would just be so triggering.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there was a time where I didn't really love myself. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I wasn't happy with my day to day. And so not to have a stranger like beat you down and, you know, point out things that you can't change. It really did a lot to my mental health when I was already not doing the best. So I did have moments where I had to step away. I stopped going on social media. I stopped even looking. But all in all, I'm very grateful for it because I have built a beautiful community of people who relate to what I have to share. And I started sharing a little bit more about my healing journey maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
And that is where my heart's at.
Yeah.
So if I can make one person feel heard, understood, you know, and relate to me in those senses, not just the pretty pictures, and just more of like the being human in this tough time. If I can have one person feel less alone, then I'm fulfilling my purpose on social media.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that you shared that. I feel a similar way because there are points where I've thought about stepping away, but then for me, it felt like this higher purpose where I felt I couldn't allow a select few people to take away my ability to reach thousands. It felt that, hey, I have this beautiful platform that most people have worked their entire lives to build. I have this now in front of me. You know, I should have take this resiliency that I have and put it to use. I've had to step back, but ultimately I've always pulled myself back in because I remind myself that, hey, this is bigger than me. I don't feel like it was an accident that I built the platform that I did. I felt that it was destiny in a way. And so that's how I end up always pulling myself back. Would you say that that's similar to how you feel? I mean, you kind of touched on it, but when you got into those places where you had to take a break, what did you do specifically to reinstill that confidence or that excitement to reappear back on social media? Like, were there particular things that you did? Did you tap into mindfulness through, maybe it was journaling? Did you have phone calls with loved ones? When you found yourself in that place of doubting your purpose on social media, how did you get back to that place of saying, no, I have this confidence, I'm going to continue pushing forward, even though I'll be subjected to more criticism?
Yeah. So when I decided to step back, I was a part of a talent agency here in Arizona, and we were doing a lot of content. It was more so Facebook Live format of like comedy videos. We did skits in a group. And it was a lot. We were filming around 20 videos a week, and some of them were longer formats. So it was taking up a lot of my headspace, a lot of my time, and I was neglecting myself a whole bunch because when I went home, then I had to write scripts. So there was not a lot of time for me. What I did was I told my team, I told my manager, look, I'm not doing the best. Like, I don't feel good, and I'm not happy doing this right now because I don't feel good. And when I'm not happy, it's going to show like on camera. Even though I have to step into this role and be funny, which I can, I'm very, like, I have mastered hiding my emotions when needed, but it didn't feel authentic anymore because I was really struggling with my emotions. And so I let them know. I think that the best part is to just be really real, like really honest with yourself of, hey, this doesn't feel good. And it's okay to step back if it doesn't feel good. Like learning when enough is enough, no matter what the views are, no matter, you know, how good it looks from the outside. And it's, if you don't feel good, if you're not happy, you need to listen to that. And my body was yelling at me of like, this is not it right now, at least.
How so specifically? Like, I always love to dive into specifics. So were you suffering from a lack of sleep? I mean, were you just staring at the wall at night? Did you wake up with just generalized anxiety? How particularly was your body speaking to you?
Yeah, well, I was neglecting myself, right? Because I was so busy. And so I stopped eating healthy. I stopped going to the gym, which is an essential way for me to release like my stress and for me to just feel like I'm at least taking care of myself physically. Once I started to let go of that part of my, you know, day-to-day, which was very important to me, I started to see the results of not taking care of yourself. I was becoming like swollen, like in my face from all the cortisol levels, like super inflamed. I was having flare-ups, like rashes and like breakouts on my face, which is normally not like something very common for me. I was gaining weight. And that was the biggest one, was I gained weight, and a lot of the people noticed and they were commenting on it. And that's really hard because, I mean, I already don't feel great, clearly. I'm not taking care of myself, clearly. And now you have random people pointing it out. So that was really hard. Once I decided to step away and take some time off, that was all I did. I like dove head into self-care, of making sure that I wasn't neglecting myself in any way. Even though I woke up feeling crappy
Yeah.
or like I wanted to go back to bed, sometimes I'd allow it. Sometimes I'd allow myself to rest extra if my body was saying, hey, I still want to be in bed. Then, okay, today we're staying in bed a little longer.
Yeah.
But after, we're going to wash our face. We're going to put on those little creams that make you feel hydrated. We're going to put on an outfit that makes us feel comfortable, but also promotes me to want to go do something active.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost a lot of my self-esteem when I gained weight, and I was anxious to even go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to do at-home workouts. I dove into mindfulness, like positive affirmations, and that then led me into being interested in doing yoga.
Okay.
So like connecting with my body in a different way, like more soft, more slow, more controlled, breath work. I did a lot of cold plunges. Just making sure that I felt like I was my priority again, rather than putting like my work or my platform before me.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I felt like I was being taken care of again. And that's kind of how I did it. Obviously, when you put a lot of work into yourself and you're really disciplined and consistent, that shows. And so eventually I started to lose that weight.
Yeah.
I started to feel more comfortable in my skin. And I was like, okay, she's back. Like the confidence is back.
Yeah.
And if anything, it was a newfound confidence because now I love myself because I'm proud that I took myself out of a really dark place and I feel lighter. And I feel like now I want to share what that was like.
Yeah.
Like that was really scary.
Yeah.
And that wasn't fun. But I did this, and this, and now I feel a little bit better. And if that helps someone, well, here it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you had to go to that low point, that valley moment, in order to grow the most. Had you have not experienced so much discomfort, you might have just found yourself in a place of complacency. And so you mentioned how I started kind of losing love for myself. I lost my self-esteem. So I started hitting the gym hard. I started really diving into self-care. And that allowed you to basically build yourself back up, and develop a greater sense of resiliency. And so now, you're a beacon of light for those individuals to say like, hey, if you find yourself in this position where you're struggling to get out of bed or you have a loss of self-esteem, pay attention to how you feel, like really tap into your body. First off, it's going to show, and it does, it shows you. I'm the same way. When I stress out, I get acne up here at the top of my head. And then, I'll even get like redness on my neck. And that so it's like my body's screaming at me. And I think a lot of people are probably aware of this, or maybe they're not, that like, hey, I tend to break out. Your body like will show you. It's just a matter of, are you conscious of it? Right. Or even as simple as if I eat really poorly, I'll have a stomach ache, I'll get more acne. It's like anything that's going to create stress causes more acne to come. So your body's screaming at you like, I'm stressed. I'm trying to show you, right? I can't speak like actual words, but I'm showing you. It's just a matter of, are you actually listening and observing what your body's telling you? So I love that, about tapping in to your body and just like stepping back and saying like, what is it trying to tell me? Another way of feeling that is just through intuition, I found. So we've had some discussions prior, and you come across as very intuitive. Is that something that you feel that you always had, or did you feel that it was developed over time? And if so, how? Did it take you going into multiple dark places to finally make this rapid change? I guess, and to finish that thought, are you the same person that you are today as you were a year ago or 5 years ago? Or has this been a rapid or gradual transition into what you are now?
Okay, so to answer the last part, God, no. I am not the same person I was 3 months ago.
Not even 3 months ago.
Right. I'm always looking to evolve. And I love self-reflection of, I'm following a bad habit again. Where does that come from? And how can I shift that? And how can I improve where that's coming from? Like, I love to just keep improving, keep learning. I love, love, love learning, especially when it comes to the brain, human behavior, just any type of psychology really to help me understand myself and others better. I'm always trying to evolve in that sense. And as far as my intuition, I would say that I developed that at a very young age because I sort of had to. My upbringing was quite chaotic. It was a very dark time as a child, and there was a lot of abuse. So I was always functioning out of like a panic state of mind, survival mode. And I had to see a lot of things that no child should see. I love my story, though. I don't really say those things to have anyone's sympathy. It's more so finding love for the pain that I had to go through, because today that pain is strength, and that pain has turned into compassion and empathy for others, because I've been able to soothe myself through all these different types of situations, and I've learned a lot while doing so. When you experience so many different traumatic moments, you can't help but to be observant. Like it's always being on like what's that term I'm trying to look for? Like you're always just super aware, right? Like you're just always like on alert.
Cognizant, yeah.
Yeah, you're just always looking for it. Like you're in panic, right? Because every day is so unpredictable, fight or flight, right? Every day at home I didn't know what I was gonna get. And this also, I want to just be super clear. Like I love both of my parents so much, and we all experience life differently. And we also have to give our parents grace because they're learning as they go as well. And I'm an only child. So a lot of the times I was in that victim mentality of like, why did that happen? Or why did I not have that from them? Or why was it this way? You know, it's so easy to be a victim when you were a victim. But I also can recognize that they taught me a lot, even through those really hard, scary moments. And if anything, it's the root of why I'm so invested into mental health and so passionate, because I see so many people, especially the people that I love, suffering in silence. And so that has been something that I now look to. Like whenever I meet anyone, I really look to meet their inner child, because my inner child was very wounded, and that then caused me to show up a certain way as an adult, and sometimes not in the best ways. I am repeating patterns that I learned that are not necessarily healthy or nurturing or, positive. So throughout that journey, I've had to just really listen to my gut, which is your instinct, right? Yeah. When you perceive that you're in danger, or when you feel stress, when you feel panic, that's listening to your gut. But then also, like we said, like really paying attention to what your body is saying, whether it's showing up physically as a rash, or like some lower back pain, or some tension, or your chest hurts because you're holding your breath too long. Those are all, things that you have picked up from something that triggered you and was, impacted you negatively. And you got to listen to that, which for me, that's my instinct. If I feel stressed, nervous, if something in the back of my mind is like, that sounds like a good opportunity, but I don't know. As soon as you say, I don't know, or but, or yes, if it's not a yes, that's your instinct to tell you probably not.
Yeah, this might be not right for me at all, or maybe it's just not right for me right now, or maybe there's some type of past trauma that I'm fearful will arise. Because it's not, it could be that maybe that the individuals that are, if maybe it's a situation that involves an opportunity, and it could be that the opportunity you might feel could be used to exploit you, or it could be there's selfish motives from the other individuals where it's not going to be a win-win. It might be a win-lose. And so you might be guarded in that aspect where it's just flat out not going to be a win-win for you. Or it could be something completely out of your comfort zone that could be really great for you, but you're potentially pushing it away because you're attributing something from a past experience and thinking that it's going to play out the same way again. And so you continually run from something that actually could be positive the universe is trying to bring to you, but you're just not ready at that moment. And so I found that if it feels wrong, if I have to make a decision in that moment, like I'm in the environment and someone's asking for an answer out of me in that moment, I find, yes, like go off my intuition. And I don't have to give a full explanation. I don't have to have the answer. I'll just say, no, you know what? Now's not a good time. But then it's always important, I think, to then when you're out of that scenario, when you have time to actually step back to say, okay, why did I say no to that? Mm-hmm. Is it glaringly obvious that this was just a bad situation that I needed to run from as quickly as possible? Or did I say no because there might be something that it was triggering me, that I was fearful of facing in that moment? So it just was easier to basically take the flight response.
Right.
I do also really appreciate that you brought up the unhealed child aspect. I believe I'm at the point where I believe everybody has an unhealed child. That's manifesting into present day behavior. I just think most individuals aren't acknowledging that part of them. There's a misconception that, oh, I'm now 30 years old. There's no way that 11-year-old's version of me is still impacting me. And that's complete BS, in my opinion. I think it's an ego, it's an egocentric thought where your ego tries to tell you, oh, we've overcome that through time. And I don't think that doesn't happen. You just basically allow it to manifest into adult behavior. I'm curious with you, do you feel that you fully healed the childhood version of you? If the answer is yes, awesome. If the answer is no, what is it that you are still struggling to, I guess, to heal from?
I feel like my inner child feels safe. Okay. So that was the biggest thing I had to create for her was we're okay now. And we can do as we please and we can say what we want and you're safe. Like you can do that. You can use your voice. You can express yourself if you're happy. You can express yourself if you're not happy. Like you're safe. It's okay. We're in control now. And so I do feel like for the most part, my inner child is healed. I love her so much. Everything I do is for her. Like, what do we want to do today? I feel like I'm mothering myself now as an adult. So yes, I feel that for the most part, she's healed or healing. The parts of me that I still can be super realistic about and realize that there's still some work to be done. And I think it's a lifetime commitment, healing. You don't just heal and, okay, we're done. No, it's everyday work for you to feel better. Because there can be a new thing that triggers you that you didn't even know. Yeah. So I found that when I'm in relationships, like romantic relationships, or when I'm craving that connection or love for that matter, that's where I can see that there's still work to be done as far as, really unraveling myself and letting down the walls. I think it's very natural and normal for us to be scared of letting someone in because we all have experienced disappointments or heartbreak in one way or another. And so I'm very protective of her now, the inner child. And I am so careful with who I let around her, especially romantic partners. I want to make sure that they're sensitive and that they're empathetic and patient and understanding, because when you date someone that's been through very traumatic things, you do have to, be mindful of that. And you have to be caring and super loving. And so whenever I've been in a situation with a partner where we're not meeting eye to eye, or if that's even the correct term, if we're not agreeing on something, or we have some type of friction, sometimes the wounded girl in me comes out, and the wounded girl is not so nice.
So how does that manifest, the wounded version for you personally? Do you run? Do you get more vocal and aggressive in nature where you fire back at that individual to basically just hopefully scare them off? How does that present for you?
I have different ways of protecting myself. Normally it's to run. Like whenever I sense that something is just not aligning, or whenever I sense like my gut telling me, hey, this is getting a little more complicated than it should be, I would be so quick to just give up and just be like, you know what, I think this is enough, which I really like about myself too, because I feel like it's protected me from staying in things too long that were clearly not for me. And so that's one way that the inner child comes out. The wounded part is kind of just fleeing, right? Like, no, that's too much. I can't. Like oversaturated. I can't. Gotta go. Like silent treatments, or on the other spectrum, I explode. Like if I keep something in too much, as far as like, you know, not liking something or feeling disrespected or feeling like I'm not being understood, and I keep that in, when it comes out, it's not nice. And that's not something that I'm proud of. I've grown a lot in that department. I think that like my communication skills have improved by 1,000. Like now I consider myself a really good communicator, but I'm still human. And sometimes when you're hurt or triggered, it's normal to react rather than respond cohesively. So there are moments where, you know, when you love someone so much, or when you really care about someone and they hurt you, it's kind of hard not to react in a way that's like, wait, why would you say that? Or, you know, so I do have my moments where I'm not proud of the way that I respond to things, but it's the wounded girl. I allow her to kind of do her thing, but then I go back to that person or the situation and I clarify like, hey, I'm really sorry that I said it in that way. I'm sorry if it was explosive. I'm sorry if it was harsh. The reason why I reacted that way was because I felt this, and that. It wasn't correct for me to react that way, but I'm letting you know like that's on me. So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and that's certainly a healthy coping mechanism, to be able to come back after an argument and say, hey, ultimately knowing that likely the individual that you're interacting with, there's some form of love there or compassion, because why else would you be interacting with them if they were somebody you truly hated? It's like, hey, our emotions got the best of us, but I do care about you. That's why I want to give you this explanation as to why I reacted this way. And I found that communication is critical, and that's where there's a lot of well, nowadays with society, I mean, you can point to so many things as to why communication is breaking down even further. It's, you know, with social media and our phones pulling us away, and not as much face-to-face interaction. Now we're staring into screens. And so people's ability to vocalize their feelings is getting worse. We're not having as much interaction as we used to. Now it's more digital. So I think that's where there's a massive breakdown, and why you see so many relationships fail. It's like over 50% nowadays, and that's stayed pretty steady. But it's like, how many of those other 50% that are in relationships are actually happy? Probably, I would say 20%. That might be generous. And so there's like, clearly the majority of people are doing it wrong. It's not working. So how do we go about fixing that?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
It's like on the top of my head.
Yeah.
Something that really helps me heal my inner child is that the communication after a bad interchange of words. There was a lot of moments as a child where I was abused verbally, emotionally, mentally, physically, and I never received an apology. I never received like a why did you do that? Like, what did I do to deserve that? A lot of times we don't deserve the pain that we're being inflicted. We don't deserve the response and the reaction. It's not even personal, but it happens that way. You're the one that's on the receiving end. And there's a lot of pain, and there was a lot of confusion in me as to why did you do that, and why like that, and why did you say that? So now as a grown adult, I'm able to reflect and recognize, oh gosh, like I'm repeating patterns that hurt me. Now I'm being the person that hurt me. But I can look at it and say, no.
Yeah.
They deserve an explanation at least and an apology. So
yeah. It's like the quit ghosting me, quit, not telling me.
Right.
Because this is so common. I do this all the time. I think everybody does, where if you're not given an explanation, then you'll think of every single scenario and you'll have no idea. And you'll sit there and you'll play this game. I mean, I know it happens. I think first thing I think of is relationships. You go on a date with somebody and you think it goes really well, and then they just fall off, and then maybe they don't text you back at all. Or maybe they tell you, hey, I just right now it's not you, it's me. And none of those answers are satisfying, because a lot of times we go, well, what was it? Like, if you just give me, a reason, that's so much better than me like trying to just dissect.
Right.
Was it, oh, I go back home and there was a piece of pepper in my tooth. And I'm like, was it because I had this stupid piece of pepper in my tooth? Is it something so little like that? Or is it maybe I should have worn this instead of that, or maybe I should have said this instead of that. And, ultimately I realized when you have self-love and self-confidence, you don't really play those games. You're just like, oh, okay, we just didn't align from an energetic standpoint. But to just have an answer, I think we can all do a better job as a society of like, just give people the truth. I think we're so focused on what happens if they don't handle it well. It's like, that's on them, right? But if you speak your truth, it will potentially cause individuals to lash out, but that just further proves that they're not your person, right? But there's so many individuals that are like, I just want an answer. That's it. Yeah. Do I deserve one? No, I'm not going to sit here and say that I deserve an answer all the time, but I think most people would appreciate that, just to like say, hey, this is, I just don't see this working out. And that might be enough. But if somebody probes further, like, well, what specifically? It's like, this is a moment where somebody is asking because, in my instance, they're trying to grow. Yeah. They want to become better. They don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And so I would say this is a PSA to everybody out there, including the people that ghost me. Stop doing it. I'm not going to attack you if you aren't interested in me, or if like there's a business opportunity and it's not there. In order for us to all become better, like, we need that explanation, right? Like it's helpful. And there were many times in my life growing up where I felt I wasn't getting the explanation that I needed. And so I went down this complete opposite path. And I went to this extreme of like, well, the people just must hate me. I'm not good enough. And it's like, no, all along I realized that I perceived this mass of this self-hate, or not self-hate. I created self-hate, but I felt that I wasn't good enough in the eyes of everybody, when the reality is I was never good enough in the eyes of my own self. And all of those individuals that I was placing that upon their shoulders to say, well, they probably hate me. None of them did. Most of them weren't even giving me a second thought. They just moved on, but I never did. I got fixated on, why did that person, not come back? Well, it's because they hated me. They weren't, I placed all these extremes. So if we all just like were mindful of like, oh, I could help this person grow, just take that extra step and just be like, let me just let them know. I mean, it goes such a long way. And it helps that person be able to let go and stop creating 20 different scenarios, or 30 or 40 or 50 for overthinkers, right? Like, it's just like, it's a negative spiral.
Yeah. Like you said, it's helpful.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's hard not to take those things personal, like being ghosted or being hurt and then not receiving an apology or an explanation. That's hurtful. And even if it wasn't personal, it's hard not to take it that way, right? I think that we're in a generation where it's super uncomfortable to have uncomfortable conversations. Like, people don't want to make other people uncomfortable, or maybe they're uncomfortable by saying, hey, I don't think that, we're a good match. But we all are so deserving of having more clarity in every area of our lives, and communication is part of that, of, hey, I think you're a great person. I really don't want you to take it this way, but there's a couple things that we just don't align in, and I don't see how it would work. Like, that is so much easier, because now if I see you out in public, we had a good closure, and now I can say hi to you and there's no hard feelings. But if I just ghost you and now I see you in public, when I have to hide and duck and be embarrassed that I couldn't be a mature adult and tell you how it is, It
ends up hurting you. I mean, because now maybe you're out with your friends one night and you see that person that you ghosted, and now you're instantly like, oh gosh, so-and-so's over there. Now you're stressing and now your night's going downhill. So I think most times people think like, oh, I can just let this be, but then you have to face them at some point potentially. Yeah. And then now your night is going to potentially be ruined. And who knows what type of like snowball effect that's going to have.
Yeah.
Maybe you go out that night and it's your friend's birthday and you're like ready to have this incredible night. And now one of the people that you used to talk to walks in and you never actually fully like came to a place of being able to make amends and just like, and just say, hey, like we're just going to go opposite directions and you're both on the same page. So now you're stressing, you're looking over there. Now your friend that's it's her birthday is looking at you like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Now you're pulling in this energy. They're feeling it. They're feeling your tension. Oh, well, should we just go somewhere else? So now they're thinking about you because they're a caring friend. But now like now there's this sense of tenseness in the air where it's like, if you'd have just had that conversation way back when, you might have been able to say, oh, hey, and go up and give them a hug and how you been? And just further have more positivity in that moment. But instead, you're having this tension moment. And well, shoot, most it might not even be just one. You might have two. I've had situations where someone's like, dude, there's 3 of my exes are here right now. Yeah. And it's like, oh, and like, yeah, I literally cut things off and it was just like, that was it. I haven't spoken to them in 6 months.
Oh no.
And I didn't tell, and so I don't know how they're going to react. And it's like, you have all this unknown that's sitting over in that corner. So now you're avoiding that section. Well, maybe they're in the dance floor and all your friends want to go dance. And now you're not dancing because you can't. Cause you're like, if I go over there, I got to have, they're going to see me.
Yeah.
So I have to hide in this corner. Right. So this is all the cascading effect of like not, basically closing the book and finding closure. Right. Yeah. And this is like, these are just some of the ways that it can manifest later on. It's like, if you don't fix it from the past, it's going to haunt you in the future. And that's literally what happens from the same thing from unhealed childhood trauma. These are all the different ways that like, if you don't find close the chapter, it's just going to basically become next chapter as opposed to the end of the book. Right.
Yes. Yes. And not just, exactly. You're also manifesting it to accumulate. So like you said, if you did it to 3 people, now you're holding onto that emotion of shame in your body.
Yeah.
And if you don't fix that, if you don't improve that, you're going to do it to the next 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's 6 people who you have in it's like an energetic tie.
Yeah.
And it's not a good one.
Yeah.
Like it's a tie that you can't cut because there's shame attached to it. There was never appropriate closure.
Yeah.
So that you're holding that in your body. Mm-hmm. And with the years, you're going to feel it in a different way.
Yeah. And now it's 6 people. Now it's 12 people. Now it's 25. Now it's 30. Before you know it, you don't want to go out because every time you go out, you see one of your exes or somebody that you had had a previous experience with. And so now how's that look? Every time I go out, and this is why I don't go out. So now your brain starts protecting, your ego jumps in. So your ego jumps in and says, well, hey, like I just got to stop going out in Old Town.
Oh gosh, okay, I felt that.
Well, now granted, maybe we shouldn't go to Old Town in general because
I'm like, wait.
It's just chaotic. It's just every time I go, it's like I one beer turns into, I don't even drink beer, but one hard alcoholic drink turns into 15, and I'm just like, not 15. That's way too much. Like 6. But now all of a sudden, it's all spiraling downhill, and now I'm not taking care of myself, and who knows? Like it's like this stuff continues to just add up, and and eventually like you can't just let it go until you finally address it. So it's the addressing versus suppression effect. It's like what you suppress will never go away until you finally address it. So I think that's important to talk about and highlight. So also going back, you mentioned your relationships, intimate relationships are an area where you feel you're still working upon, and you become very guarded, and you put your walls up. Is that specific to when you put your guard up? Is that specific to men only, or do you put your guard up with women as well? Is this basically like you're basically placing your guard up to anybody that could potentially come into your life?
Yeah.
So it's not male specific. It's men and women both.
No, because I've been hurt by both tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And by people that you never expected, like your friends, your family, like actually being malicious and like having the intention of hurting you. And so I've had amazing friends who were like sisters just completely turn their back. I've had, people that I loved very dearly just change the script like that. I've had family show me that, sometimes they're not your biggest supporters. And so for me, it's very important to just always be really careful because my heart's on the line. I love hard. Like I feel very intensely, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm going to give you my love, you should be, not that like you need to deserve my love, but I give a lot, like a lot of me when I love you, when I care for you, because that comes from a place of lack. It's what I needed. It's what I wanted. And it's what I want now. I want someone that loves me like this. Someone that's careful, someone that's nurturing, someone that's, patient. And so I give what I want.
Yeah.
And you can't give that to everyone, because if, clear communication is really important to me, but it's not really important to my partner, then that means they don't really deserve me to go on a 30-minute rant with them about my emotions if they're like on their phone or if they zoned out halfway through it. That's what I mean by being super protective and kind of putting those walls up, knowing who plays what role in your life. There's friends that you have that are to go out to eat, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then there's friends that you can cry with. They're not always going to be the same person.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's not necessarily like, oh, I have these walls up, like no one can date me. No, it's just I have these walls up because I care for myself. And, I give a lot of love. So I need to be careful with who I give it to. It's not so much of like, don't come near me. It's who I want to allow in. You can come near me. I'm super warm and welcoming, and I'm very social. I'll say hi to everyone. I'll shake everyone's hand. I see everyone the same. But who do I allow access to, like the core of me, the little girl of me,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So this is a somewhat selfish question, but also it's going to, my audience is primarily women. Actually, I know the numbers, 93% women, 7% men. Because I have my professional dashboard on my Instagram. So and I'm all very analytical. Well, kind of analytical. I'm not actually all about numbers, but I do see value in them.
Yeah.
Because you can always interpret numbers however you want, one way or the other, but sometimes it's like, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah.
The numbers
Facts.
support it, right? Facts are facts. But are they? Who knows? I mean, we can get into like gray areas and such.
Oh,
but,
true, huh?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a gray area individual. That's the way I live my life. But on the topic of dating, if you could be, if you could be in this moment, the voice for many of the women that listen to my podcast.
Okay.
Dating is a very, treacherous journey nowadays.
I'm already stressed out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with the maybe the hardwiring of the difference between men and women in general. I think there's a clear lack of communication, a clear ability for, I'll speak on men's behalf, what I've seen. A lot of men don't know how to vocalize the way they feel. And I think that's agitating to women because they're like, if you could just tell me how you felt, instead you just want to harbor everything within. I think there's a lot of people when they go into dates that they just basically talk about themselves. That's a sabotaging behavior where they just talk about themselves and don't get to know the other person. So, okay, where I'm going with this, if you could speak for women, and I guess I'm not trying to put too much pressure on you, because it's like, you're not like every woman, right? You're like, every woman is different.
Yeah.
But in your dating life, what have you noticed that, or what's some advice to men or things that you've noticed sabotaging behavior? That it's like you've talked with your other girlfriends and it's like men just need to, like, they get it wrong here. They don't realize this. Like, is there anything that as I pose this question that you're just like, my gosh, like the last 5 men I've talked to, if they just understood this, like this is what seems to be a common hang up, especially amongst my friends, as far as like where there's a disconnect when it comes to trying to establish a connection.
Whoa.
Again, selfish question because I'm sure I'm probably engaging in some of this behavior, but I know from talking to other men, it's just like, well, everybody likes to say, well, it didn't go right because she did this. It's like, yeah, but what did you do that you're probably not aware of?
Okay, I have 2 things that come to mind like that.
Perfect.
Ego and vulnerability, which are so different, right? So I'll start with ego.
Okay.
I feel like you said men have a hard time feeling, or maybe not feeling, but admitting that they feel something because we, for decades now, have heard this whole thing that I don't know who first said it, and shame on them, but like men can't cry.
Yeah.
Crying makes men weak. And emotional men are not masculine, this and that. That has created such a toxic mindset of men want to be like these macho, just like afraid to feel like too cool for school.
Yeah.
And that is just, that's so hard. When you feel like you have a really special connection with someone, but they are just so hard and so stern, and my way is the way, and you're just too emotional. You got to be more logical, and this and that. I've had, so many situations just in my family of observing, like, I'm Mexican, so we're very tough love. And Mexican men, they don't really cry, and they don't really talk about emotions, and they don't talk about what scares them or what hurts or trauma or anything like that. They're like, no, I'd rather not. They just leave, right? And then the vulnerability part goes in with that of there's so much beauty in being vulnerable and letting those walls down and taking that mask off for your person, right? Maybe as a man, you can't show up soft and vulnerable everywhere you go because perhaps you're not as respected. Like in a workplace, you don't want to show up all emotional and, today was a tough day, so I'm crying about it. That would probably make it hard for a man because it's a man's world where, it's business and it's logics and this and that. But with your partner, I think that it's a beautiful place to really allow those walls down and to open up as to, like, what are your insecurities? What are you afraid of? How can I show up for you better? How do you like receiving love? Like, what makes you uncomfortable? What makes you jealous? What makes you really happy? What, that's being vulnerable and just being honest about the things you like, the things you don't like, the things that you're willing to accept, and the things that you're just not about.
Yeah.
So was this question more so like for the women? Because I feel like I just went in on the men.
No, I wanted you to just, basically, what are you seeing right now that men are doing that, if they heard this, what your explanation there, it may help them to become reflective and say, okay, hey, I need to focus on being less egotistical, being more vulnerable because I may be sabotaging myself with conversations when I'm going out on dates and not realizing it.
Yeah.
So I think you answered that really well. I do think that men need to be more vulnerable, and I think their ego is what's stopping them from being vulnerable. So they tie into each other.
Yeah, the ego creates sort of like a blind spot.
Yeah.
Like.
So I would say that in general, yes. I mean, from what I've heard talking to other girls, is like they want men. There's such a lack of it that they want to see it, just like any bit of vulnerability. But on the other side of that, can a man overshare? Can he be too vulnerable? Is there a point at which you're sitting down for a first date and you go, whoa, like this is actually now doing the opposite effect? Like, I want men to be more vulnerable, but this man is like so overly vulnerable that it's now making me have concerns that he may not be able to offer me a sense of security, which is what I seek.
Yeah.
So can there be the other side of it where there's too much sharing?
I think that totally depends on the person, like the woman or the man. For me, you can never be too vulnerable because I'm super vulnerable. Like, I'm an open book about my emotions. I'm an open book about my past and who I want to become. Yeah. Like, that's super important for me. And that's something I want to share with my partner. So I want the same from him because I want to know how to show up for him, how to love him, how to support him. I don't think there's ever too much for me.
Okay.
Like vulnerability or oversharing. At the end of the day, that's your partner, and you want to know as much as you can about them because that allows you to understand them. And if you are planning a future with the person, it's super important to know what makes them tick. It's important to know what makes them happy, what, makes them uncomfortable. Because if you're their partner, you're also a pillar. You're also the support, the foundation. And so the more I know, the better.
Okay.
But obviously, there's other people who don't function that way, and that doesn't make them right or wrong.
Yeah.
That's just simply not important to them. Like, some people are a closed book and they only want to share the present. They don't want to share what they've lived through. They don't want to share like what scares them, this, and that, for whatever reason. Maybe it's a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
And so now when someone else does it, it can be a trigger for them.
Yeah.
Or maybe it can just be like uncomfortable or, corny or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that depends on the person. And that's what comes with, really getting to know someone before dating.
Yeah.
Like, if the first date is already uncomfortable because you feel like someone overshared or someone didn't share enough, pay attention to that, voice it once.
Yeah.
If it changes for the better, that person is putting in the work and is making an effort to connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you voice it and nothing changes.
Yeah. Then you have your answer. Yeah.
There's your answer.
Yeah. And something that I was, again, as I asked the question, I really, again, it's contextual, but it really depends upon the individual themselves. So I think then that the response to that is somebody goes, okay, well, thanks for that answer. Like, how do I know then when to like open up and when not to? But then you touched on that. It's like, you have to know the person,
mm-hmm. We're
right?
all different.
So, okay, someone's like, well, I'm on a first date. I don't know this individual. Mm-hmm. So how will I know? And I think a very blatant answer to that is get really good at asking questions, because I don't know about you, but I can absolutely attest to this. I have never once turned somebody away because I was asking good questions. Mm-hmm. I think I started to they started to realize we weren't aligned the second I started answering their questions, or the second that I started to just share, like without them even asking, I just started sharing who I was. And now they're seeing me for who I am. And okay, now they're saying, oh, yeah, this doesn't align with me, right? But I think this is where, if I were to give actionable advice to people right now, and I'm by no means no relationship guru, but I definitely have made a lot of mistakes and failed a million times. And I find that though, when I'm out there dating, when I'm asking good questions, that is like far and few between. I mean, I think nowadays most people go on dates and like they hardly ask questions. I mean, most people are just, I got, that car out there. Yeah. I mean, it's been rough, but I came I got out the mud, I didn't have anything. And now all of a sudden, I had to bust my ass. And now, here I am. And that's why I work so hard. And it's like, they're trying to impress, and they're like, look at the car, I'm wearing my watch. They're pumping their ego. Yeah. Like they're sitting here as they're talking and they're like, let me think about that. They got this big old watch on, and they're just like, you see that, right? And the car they show up in.
God.
And, there's a lot of men that especially out in Scottsdale, that do this. And it's like, I'm trying to show you why I'm so great, right? But it's actually, it's like, no, you need to be figuring out, first off, does this person even care about that? You have no idea. You're assuming the flashiness is going to catch their eye and make them want you more. And it might be doing the exact opposite. They're like, this guy, I've never seen a bigger ego on him. So again, it's like, but if we all went into like, how can I, like, what are 3 questions I want to go in and ask this individual and get to know, then you uncover like what's important to them. And then now you can feel comfortable. Can I share? Or is this person not very vulnerable? Therefore, like if they're not vulnerable and I can't get them to be, then if I am overly vulnerable, it's probably going to turn them away. And so it's more, instead of me like being vulnerable, it's like, how do I understand why they're withholding this, right? So I guess actual advice is like become better at asking questions, which like that would require most people to also, with that, you have to be curious and you have to have interest. And that's where I found a lot of people just lackadaisically, is that a word? It's close. They just basically willy-nilly, like they just go out and casually, I'll go on this date. Why not? I have nothing else better to do on my Friday night. I think if you're in that position, it's like, don't go on the date.
Don't.
No, you want to have I can't wait. We planned this on a Monday and I've been waiting for this date all week. Like that's going to allow you to ask great questions. If you're just like, I don't really care about the outcome, this is like, I'm just bored, I have nothing better to do.
That's awful.
Then you're not doing yourself a service. Like you're just literally dating to date.
You're wasting someone else's time that probably is interested, and that's really mean.
Yeah, but you're also wasting your time because but this is where I think you dive into what's someone's motive, and this is where there's just a lot of people nowadays that they have a selfish motive. Oh, I just want to take this girl to bed. I don't actually want to date her, so I'm just trying to get this out of her. I'll say whatever she needs to hear in order for me to get her. And then once I do, I'm kicking her out. And that's just, unfortunately, it's manipulative, and that's just how some people are. And I think that's where, though, when you become better at asking questions, and when you dive into this to self-help and you dive into doing the work, like, you become better at picking it up, as in, like, what is this person really trying to get out of me? So you know, doing the work allows you to see through people and their acts. And so it all comes back to healing the inner child. It all comes back to doing the work. It all comes back to, like, how can I find the self-love and self-confidence and really know who I am? Because as I begin to learn more about myself, I begin to learn more about my environment, because really the environment, as I've heard people put it, is just a reflection of what's happening inwardly.
Definitely.
You know, if you feel pain inwardly, you're going to find pain outwardly. If you have a true abundance of love within, you'll find love externally, because you'll be just exuding it out. And that's the energy transfer. What you exude out is what you attract back. And so it's hard for a lot of people, especially with their egos, to say, oh, I have all this negativity coming my way. It's like, well, let's look. Why is that? It's because of you. It is. It's hard to say.
It's a hard pill
it's
to
hard
swallow.
pill to swallow, but like the energy that you're attracting is because of what you're outwardly conveying, because of what inwardly you're withholding. So this was, you know, Karla, see, I knew this was gonna be an awesome conversation. I didn't know where exactly we would take it, but I am really, really grateful for your vulnerability today. I'm grateful that, you know, there were so many different things that you touched upon that I absolutely know wholeheartedly that those that listen will be able to relate to, and will be able to take steps towards bettering themselves. So thank you so much for letting me be the first one to do a podcast with you. I don't take that lightly. Very, very grateful. And I knew, obviously, you are a vessel of knowledge, and you've went through so much. And so thank you for sharing everything that you did today. For those individuals that heard you talk today or watched you speak, depending on which, you know, social media channel they decide to go upon to hear this, how can individuals continue to stay in contact with you and follow along in your journey? What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm Karla Marie. And then I have my personal brand too, which is Clarity Wellness. That is a platform for, you know, more of my life coaching services. My niche is mental health, holistic healing. And that's a perfect way for anyone that's needing like a little bit of extra emotional support or encouragement during tough times, to feel like they are at a place that is safe, where they can just be who they need to be and, you know, receive some extra guidance. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a lovely conversation, and I'm just super flattered to be here and to feel that you found value in what we spoke about, because I feel like we hit really important topics. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.